Recording has started at 7:10. Good evening, everyone. I'm Harry Singh. I'm a member of Community Board 12, and I recently was appointed as chairman of the disciplinary committee. The committee comprises 3 members: myself, Beatrice Coronel, and Carl Lanzano, who's not with us yet, hopefully. And tonight's meeting is our first. My understanding is that each community board is required to have a disciplinary committee that that has to oversee complaints brought by board members, members of the public, against board members, members of the public, or elected officials. And I think this is long overdue for Community Board 12. We now have one. This is our very first meeting. In preparation for tonight's meeting, I've met separately with Ms. Sabio, the General Counsel of the Bronx Borough President's Office, and Mr. Tom Lucania, who's the Director of Community Board and Legislative Affairs. And I've discussed with them what our expectation is in running the disciplinary committee for CB12. And also, I've asked them to provide me what other community boards have in terms of a procedure for complaints to be filed, and how those are handled, and also what exactly we're holding people accountable for not doing or for doing. So they suggested we have a code of conduct, which I've drafted. They've suggested that we have a very clear procedure how people could approach the committee and outline their complaints and provide supporting documentation. And I've drafted those. Beatrice and Carl have reviewed what I've done. And then I forwarded that work to Ms. Sabio and Mr. Lucania at the Borough President's Office for their review and for commenting before we could make it official at one of our meetings. What I was advised by them is that in order to hold people accountable for or for disciplining and recommending discipline for CB12 members, our code of conduct should be part of our bylaws in order for us to find that people have violated them. So first of all, we never had a code of conduct, so it was never in the bylaws. So what I'm going to ask, and I think now if you follow the agenda for tonight, I've now gone into agenda item 2 and probably beyond. What I would ask is for suggestions from you as to how, and that includes George and Ursula, how we could have the code of conduct be part of the bylaws. Do I make a referral to our bylaws committee to consider it? Do I make a referral to the general board and then the board mandates the bylaws committee? What is the fastest and most legitimate process to have this done? That's my question to you. Alfredo?
Sorry, guys. Sorry for interrupt. If somebody's trying to call in and they cannot hear, they got to press like a star something to talk or to hear the meeting. If they're calling from a
star who?
6. Star 6?
Yes, that's what I think it is.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
So, Harry, if I'm not mistaken, you got to make the recommendation to the bylaws committee, and then they meet, and then the full board will vote on it.
Okay.
Harry, I think Carl is on the phone, but call him out and see if he's there. It looks like his phone number.
Oh, it's Carla. I'm sorry, I joined late.
Okay.
Hi, Carla.
Hi, Harry.
Welcome. We were also hoping to have Carl Lanzano join us. Okay, so
Oh, yeah, no. I'm sorry. I thought you meant Carl Stricker. He's unavailable tonight, but I didn't speak to Carl Lanzano today.
okay, right. Lanzano is on the disciplinary committee. So Carla, right before you joined, I was asking for suggestions, and I've received one so far as to how we can make our code of conduct part of our bylaws. If you have any suggestion.
Well, I can do better than that and tell you what the process is. So once it's presented, ready for presentation, you need to ask Dr. Burke to announce it at whatever the upcoming meeting is, and then it can be voted on in the following meeting. So it has to be announced in one meeting, and then it comes up for a vote the following meeting.
And this is a meeting of which committee?
Bylaws.
So it has to originate from the bylaws committee.
Well, it originates from your committee first.
How does it get
And then
from
it
my
can-
committee to yours?
Yes. Yes. So, and I did email Dr. Burke yesterday asking him to request a vote to extend bylaws committee through June, because I've heard various rumblings that various members have a range of things they'd like to bring before bylaws, and all ad hoc committees dissolve upon the next election. So I did ask him to have a vote to extend us, because I think there is more work to be done.
So Carla, assuming the vote passes and your committee is extended, how does my committee get the code of conduct to yours?
So first, you present it to Dr. Burke. It has to be announced at one meeting, one full board meeting.
One
and then,
full board meeting, okay.
Yes. And then it is voted on by the full board, general board meeting, the following meeting. It's not a slow process, as you can tell. And then it goes to bylaws to just incorporate it. We meet and vote saying everybody's happy with the language. So we kind of okay it. And the next thing, it gets incorporated into the bylaws, and we publish new bylaws.
Okay.
Yeah, again, it's not a quick process, but, it works, so.
Well, I'm more interested in it being the right process than the quick process. I mean, ideally, it would be great to have it done overnight, but also we didn't have a disciplinary committee in CB12, even though we were supposed to have one for years. So
yes,
I don't
think we. Oh, I'm
Sorry,
sorry, I
go ahead.
interrupted. No, it wasn't years. We were a few months behind, just in our defense.
The disciplinary committee?
Yes. I think it was just this past calendar year that the borough president's office required it.
I thought other community boards had theirs before.
Caller, Harry, excuse me, caller. It was prior to last year. It's been 2 years, if not two to 2.5 years, when that was brought by the borough president to the community boards. Because this is during the time of William Hall.
Oh, really? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just not recollecting that bit of history, but when they told us get with it, we did. So, because I remember adding disciplinary committee to the bylaws list of standing committees around March time this year.
Okay.
Howie, I have a question. It's a procedural
Yes.
question. But I know most of our meetings are public meetings. This one, I don't see anyone outside of the board on this? Or is this one a public meeting? What makes it different for me?
They're all public by law. Some are
But I'm
just more
sorry,
interesting.
I missed half of what you're asking. You faded out. Can you repeat your question, please?
Now I was saying, I know this is a new committee, and so I don't know if it's different to the others, but I don't see anyone from the public on this call right now. So I was wondering if the invitation was extended to the public, and is it a public, or it's just a closed meeting?
Well, I can answer the latter part of what you're asking if it's a public meeting. Yes, this meeting is subject to the open meetings law, so that makes it a public meeting. As to whether or not the invitation was disseminated to the entire public, I would defer to George and Ursula.
Yes, we did share it with our list.
Singh, Ivan Boris, I have a question.
Yeah, Ivan, go ahead.
My question is to yourself and the rest of the committee is, or the point to make is the conflict of interest, being that it does have to go through our chairman, Dr. Michael Burke, first, where he is the matter in question, and at least two of the discipline committee things that are to be brought up.
What would have to go through him first?
Carla just expressed that whatever is decided in the discipline committee have to be it has to go through him first. It has to be told to him first, whereas then presented to the rest of the board. I mean, if she wants to clarify, that's fine, but that's what I gathered from what she was just talking about. Now, with that being said, I see an obvious conflict of interest because it has to go through him.
All right, Carla,
Well,
can you
okay,
clarify what you said, please?
Yes, let me clarify. So he has to announce it at the next upcoming board meeting, and then the following board meeting, the full board votes on it, and he gets one vote like anybody else.
So, Harry, if you will, I can read the amendment that we have currently in our bylaws, which is Article 9 amendments. And bylaw, I guess what you're proposing would be an amendment or an addition to the bylaws, which is the code of conduct. So Section 1, Article 9, this is anybody who has a handbook can read this. This is in our handbook. Any member of the board may propose an amendment to these bylaws. A proposed amendment shall be submitted in writing to the chairperson, who shall present it at the next meeting of the board, but no vote shall be taken at the meeting. The proposed amendment shall then be placed on the agenda for the following meeting of the board and shall become an amendment to these bylaws upon its approval by the majority of the appointed members of the board present and voting. So Carla is right about that.
Right, but I think I don't want to speak for Ivan, but I think Ivan was referring. Ivan, were you referring to just the code of conduct that we want to make part of the bylaws, or are you referring to the actual outcome of an investigation?
Outcome. Thank you for clarifying, Mr. Singh, and understanding. Yes.
Right. So first of all, to address any conflicts of interest, if I feel I have a conflict and that all depends on who the subjects are of the complaint, I have to recuse myself. And Dr. Burke has to find someone else to chair the committee for that particular investigation. If one of the committee members has a conflict, that person is under an ethical obligation to disclose that, and then we replace that person. Now, let's say theoretically we conduct our investigation, we speak with the complainant, the subject of the complaint, we ask for you to submit all your supporting documentation you have, and upon us reviewing the totality of all of the paperwork, we feel that we still need to hear from a witness, then we can schedule a meeting of the disciplinary committee for the purpose of hearing from a witness. That is a public hearing. And then we write up our findings and make our recommendations, and those get forwarded to Dr. Burke to take to the general board. Is that where your concern is?
No, it
Go
wasn't,
to
Mr.
Dr.
Singh,
Burke?
but that was a great explanation. No, that's not where I was. That's not what the concern was. I guess the clarity was whether or not whatever's brought from the discipline committee brought to the chairman, Dr. Burke, and whether or not he shares that with the rest of the board. I'm assuming now with Carla said and what you just said, that it's not his choice. So, which is what I was addressing, whether or not it gets brought to the rest of the board. But for it to go through him first, right? I was merely concerned with Dr. Burke being the middle person, so to speak, where potentially it wouldn't go to the board, or disseminate it to the rest of the board, and carried out,
And when you say when it goes to Dr. Burke, now again, are you referring to when the complaint comes in or when the findings go out to Dr. Burke? Because when the complaint comes in, it doesn't go to Dr. Burke, it comes straight to me and Beatrice and Carl.
Okay, got you. As far as it being as far as it being presented to the rest of the board, so that's what I was. Again, I need a clarity on that.
Right. So I'm very conscious of conflicts of interest. So I've built into our procedure a mechanism for people to get out if they feel they can't honestly and impartially investigate a complaint. And listen, if someone files a complaint and you challenge the impartiality of one of us, then that you're totally free to do that. If you feel that I'm somehow compromised, I would hope that you would raise that. So we in the end, we don't have a tainted investigation.
You at all, Mrs. Singh? Not you at all, Mrs. Singh.
Oh no. I'm saying me theoretically.
Okay.
But it could be. I'm just saying that if you feel one of the committee members is somehow unable to investigate a complaint, I think you have that obligation to raise that. So I think I'm pretty clear on what I need to do now. I need to get the code of conduct to, let me just go over my notes.
Right, so it goes to Dr. Burke, he announces it one board meeting, the following board meeting, all board members vote on it.
Right. So what I'll do, I'll finalize my draft, send it to you, Beatrice and Carl, and I'll check in with the borough president's office if they have any comments in what I've worked on before we start moving on it. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, Dr. Singh. So when the board members vote on it, are they voting on it to become part of the bylaws, or voting it for it to go to the bylaws committee?
Excuse me, can you hear Barbara Gibson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Gibson, we can hear you.
Thank you, sir.
Carla, can you answer Mr. James's question, please?
So it goes to the bylaws committee primarily to ensure that the language is consistent with what the borough president's office will accept and consistent with the rest of our bylaws. And everybody should be aware also that if anyone is dissatisfied with the process they received in filing a complaint, it can be referred to the borough president's office to mediate, to have another hearing. So just saying we're going to hear a case, hear an issue, a concern within the disciplinary committee does not mean that that's the last
resort.
Stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, resource, yeah. So, yeah, that's just what I'll add. Mostly what I did on bylaws committee was just correct the language and the punctuation and whatever and make sure it all the sentences were clear and concise. So that's really the value the bylaws committee adds. We make sure everything's clear before we recommend publishing an updated version of the bylaws. We try not to change the substance of whatever is suggested, except that, of course, it is an open meeting, so there can be more debate if other members and the public attend, although the public tends not to attend bylaws meetings. They're a little dry for most people. But so we just clean up the language if needed, and then we send to the office to publish.
So once the bylaws committee gets that report and they review it and clean up the language, as you said, will there have to be another vote for it to be adopted, or it just gets adopted once it leaves the bylaws committee?
Well, so again, it's a vote of the bylaws committee. If other members attend and want to debate any point, then we hear every voice that wants to be heard at those meetings, and then it goes back to the general board if there is any disagreement about how the changes to the bylaws should be presented.
Question, Barbara Gibson.
Yes, Ms. Gibson, go ahead.
How do you come up with numbers? What amount of numbers are you looking for to make it official?
What do you mean? What committee?
You're saying that you have to take a vote?
Oh, you mean when the bylaws committee takes a vote?
Yes.
Or the general board?
I want to know the number of the votes that's needed for this bylaws for it to be official.
Okay, well, there are 5 of us. So first, disciplinary committee has to send us something upon which they voted. Then it comes to us.
Okay, correct.
And
one moment. When you
Sure.
say this vote, it'd be 2-1 or 3-3? It's only 3
well,
on
in
your
our case, well, once it comes to bylaws, it has to be 3 out of 5 members.
Okay.
There are 5.
Okay. So now the other committee, theirs is anonymous? 3?
I think
Three
we're
of
going to
them?
be 2-3. I'm sorry, 2-1.
It will have to be 2-1 for it to
I think
pass?
so. I think that'll be majority.
Thank you.
Ivan, you have your hand up?
Previously, Mr. Singh, I'll take it down. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one question, just I'm thinking of the timeline of how long this takes. George, I know that in November the 4th, Thursday falls on Thanksgiving. When do we meet then in November?
So I was going to make an announcement at tomorrow's full board meeting. For November, we always move the full board meeting 1 week prior, prior because of the Thanksgiving holiday.
Okay.
I think that makes it the 18th. If I don't have the calendar in front of me.
Right.
Yeah, the 18th. It would be the full board meetings on the 18th. I've already actually created a WebEx for it. We haven't sent it out because of, we need an agenda and all that stuff.
So Harry, is it too soon for Dr. Burke to present this tomorrow's board meeting, general board meeting? So that we can vote the following in November?
I don't think so. If I get it to him by tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, guys. I mean, I got disconnected from my laptop. I don't know why. It's Alfredo. So I didn't hear a lot of the meeting. So a couple of things. And again, I'm speaking amongst myself. These are my opinions, my comments, nobody else. Regarding this committee, I see that it was put together, and I see that yourself, Mr. Strick, Carl, and Ms. Beatrice were appointed. My thing is, and again, I could be a layman or I could be missing something. Why wasn't this put up So everyone on the board, I think we have 40 something members, could vote as to who could be on this committee. I think somebody said something I didn't really understand who, regarding a conflict of interest. So like, let's just say that, you know, I appointed a particular person and I'm one of the people that is being disciplined. So the person that I appointed could, you know, negatively or positively vote in favor of me because they know me. And again, no disrespect to nobody that was appointed. I just feel that us as a board, this should have been raised and, you know, and spoken about amongst everyone, not just create the committee and put people on there and then, okay, we have a meeting. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff going on in CB12, a lot of stuff that's not cool. And, you know, a lot of this, you know, people are talking in the streets, you know, people are calling me, people are talking in the streets. So we want to make sure that, you know, everybody's on the same page and nobody's feeling a certain way, especially if, you know, certain people were appointed to certain committees without the whole board, you know, boarding them in. And again, this is just my opinion. It's nobody's opinion, you know, and I mean no disrespect to nobody, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's what I have to say.
Barbara Gibson, may I ask a question?
Well, before you go, Barbara, can George, would you like to comment on what Alfredo said, or maybe Carla, as to how committees are created and members appointed?
Okay, well, I'll run with it. This is Carla. It is the chairperson's responsibility to appoint committee members. And sometimes it's done in a purely practical manner. Who else is available, right? Because most of us are already committed to other committees. I already have two. So obviously I was not a candidate. It's a combination of who has the right skills for that subject matter and who actually has availability, right? Because we try not to
Carla,
over.
Carla, I got to interrupt you for a second because you just said something. When you say that
Sure.
people got to have skills, what skills are you referring to? Because everybody on this committee, on this board has skills. So I think you should rephrase that. No, Carla, rephrase what you just said. It's not about who has skills or who knows more than the other person. We all here for one common goal. You're not better than me. I'm not better than you. So rephrase that what you just said, please.
Okay, I'll try. Let me think a minute. So I have corporate experience working, you know, in the corporate world for 35 years. So I have a certain skill set. Other people have a skill set working in healthcare. Other people have skill sets working in the law, right? So I believe our chairman tries to make a match between our life skills and which committee he assigns us to. Is that better?
What chairman?
Our chairman, yes.
What chairman?
So Dr. Burke's responsibility is to appoint.
It's a conflict of interest, period. I don't know how we're going to get over that. Maybe we have to go for the second vice president, but we are not accepting his appointees per se. No, it's conflict of interest.
Okay, if a person wishing to bring a complaint has an issue with the members of the committee, the issue can be escalated to the borough president's office to assist in resolving the conflict.
Carla, Ursula
that's the out.
Carla, Ursula has something she would like to share.
Guys, Carla was right. Unfortunately, that's how your bylaws read. Your bylaws say that the chairperson, which currently now is Dr. Burke, can do this. So if you don't want him to have the authority to do this, you have to change the bylaws. And another thing, he has to extend Carla's committee or you can't do anything. Because her committee is set to expire. So you can't even present anything to her until Dr. Burke's extended. You may not be happy with who he chose to put on, but there's nothing we can do about it right now. I hope that everybody will be able to look at themselves in the mirror and say, hey, I can make this decision without any prejudice.
I wish it had happened in the
But going
beginning.
forward, if you don't want this to happen, you have to change the bylaws. There's nothing that the borough president's office is going to do for us right now. They're putting everything back to the community board. So, number one, Dr. Burke has to extend the bylaws committee or nothing is happening.
Well,
Number
how do we know he's going to extend it? How do we know he's going to extend it?
I'm pretty sure he will. I'm pretty sure he will.
Because I asked him to.
Why? Because you asked him to.
Because we have issues to discuss. And we have, and disciplinary committee is an issue that came from the borough president's office that they wanted us to have. So he has to extend it so we can have this matter taken care of.
Thank you.
Yes, I did email. Yes, I'm sorry, I interrupted someone.
I was going to ask Mr. Singh, when was your committee constituted?
Ursula, do you remember when the disciplinary committee? I believe I was informed. Was it 2 months ago?
Something like that. I don't remember the exact date.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact date.
It was a couple of months ago.
By who?
But it was. So sorry. This is Carla again.
Everyone should have that.
Let me retract that. Originally, Dr. Hall created the committee and put Hillary Bloomfield as the chairperson. So this has happened before.
Yes.
But
yes.
Hillary resigned. Dr. Hall left. The committee never formed. And then we have these issues, and the borough president's office is saying, hey, you got to do this. So here we are.
And we had a pandemic.
Yes, so
the pandemic in the middle of all that too.
Yes, so Ursula, you're correct. It was meant to be Hillary's committee originally, but then she resigned. So we started from scratch again. But I know it is in the May 2021 bylaws, the final version that I sent to the office. I added that committee. I typed it myself. So it is official as of May 2021 bylaws, which have not been published to the full board yet, but it was finalized in May.
And then we had the summer break of meetings.
Thank you.
Ms. Gibson, did you have a question?
Carla, once you was on that steering committee, what happened? You got dropped on the distance.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that question.
I said, if I understand correctly, you was on that committee, but you got dropped.
No, I never was. I already had 2 committees, so I was never.
Somebody made a mistake.
Possibly. It's been known to happen. But no, I was never on disciplinary committee, just on bylaws to document that that is now an official standing committee of Community Board 12.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think George is clarifying in the chat that the full board meeting in May was on May 27th. It was on the May's agenda. With that said, are there any other questions for the disciplinary committee tonight?
I'd like to know.
Excuse me, Ms. Gibson. John Isaac has his hand up. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I just want to clarify something. Number one, this has nothing to do with Dr. Burke. The board president asks for us to form this disciplinary committee. And that's the bottom line. It's nothing that Dr. Burke did. It's nothing that, for all this stuff that we going on with, I've been just sitting here and I'm like, we need to chill out with this. We have not create an issue out of this. All we needed to do was create the committee. And Carla came on and she asked for us to continue amending the bylaws. To do that, we need to go back to the board and say, could we continue amending the bylaws? That's all she's asking for. If you want changes in the bylaws, you just need to put it in a writing and give it to Carla, and she'll present it to the board. So whatever you have a problem with in the bylaws, just put it in writing again and give it to Carla, and we'll discuss it as a group. Okay, there's nothing to it. Actually, in the bylaws, it says the chairman is a person that appoints everyone to the committee.
We understand that,
So,
Mr. Isaac.
yeah, so if you want to see that change happen, then you vote for that and you say, you know what happened? I don't want the chairman to do anything. That's what you should say, Ms. Gibson.
I will consider that.
Okay. With
Right.
that
It
said,
should be put in writing to the chairman so that he can announce it at the next meeting in order to be able to vote on it on the subsequent meeting, at the subsequent full board meeting. But you can copy all the bylaws members so we can get working on the language.
Thank
Thanks,
you, but
Carla.
I might not be the only one, but thank you.
Could I just say something else again? When we amend these bylaws because of our feelings, that Mr. Singh, is it, doesn't it affect future litigation or future things that's going to happen on the board? So if the chairman doesn't appoint people on committees, who appoint? Do we have like a vote to appoint people on committees?
well, I think
This whole
that's
this
what
it don't make any
Alfredo
sense
was
to me.
suggesting.
Yeah, but some of that stuff don't make any sense. If there's a issue, it comes straight to you and you deal with it. It has nothing to do with the chairman. It doesn't have to do with anything.
Also,
Mr. Isaac, with all due respect, it's easy for you to say to, that this changes things or whatever the case may be. But when you are the one that has been offended and it hasn't been addressed in over a year, and it's still continuing not to be addressed, it's easy for you to say that, oh, that this is going to change things for the future or mitigate things or whatever the case may be. It's easy for you to say when you're not the one that has been offended.
So did you send a letter to the bar president's office?
And it hasn't been addressed.
So then that don't have anything to do with the committee that was created or anything. That's the bar president's office. I mean, I wrote to the bar president office. He has not responded to me. I wrote to Kevin Rowley. He has not responded to me. So it don't make a difference.
Okay, wait. Certain issues will not be addressed with this committee. Mr. Boris, your issues will not be addressed with this committee. Your issues are not to be discussed by this committee, are not to be discussed by the board or anything. Your issue is handled by another city agency. So your issue will
Miss
not.
Green, I have not been reached out by anyone, and that can go on record.
No,
Not
hold on.
one person.
Ivan, I'm going to stop you right there because you know that's not a true statement.
That is not true.
You have been
Go ahead.
notified by the borough president's office. I will call Tom right now and get him in this meeting.
Absolutely.
You know
Please do.
that, Ivan, this is not something that we can compromise on.
George, I get that.
Ivan, we're not allowed to discuss this. And the fact that you keep raising this up is a problem.
What, George, Ursula, whoever is in this meeting, I'm telling you that I have not been contacted. The only time I got contacted by Tom Lucania is that he told me that it was out of his hands. It was out of his hands, and that other entities were now dealing with it. I have not had not one person or anybody say that this entity is now dealing with it. So this is what I'm saying. I'm not trying to to cry over spilled milk. I'm trying to tell you, nobody's
Oh,
ever listened to.
you're saying that Tom never, the borough president's office never sent you a letter
They sent me a letter that it was
stating
out of their hands.
and stating that it was out of their hands and the borough and the community board's hands.
Yes.
Okay, so then why are we having this discussion right now?
Because nobody else has contacted me. So how do
That's
I
not
know
on
that
us.
it's out of the community? How do I know that it's out of anybody's hands?
Because you were advised by counsel, i.e. the borough president's counsel, Mirtha Sabio, that we were not to discuss this issue.
I wasn't
You just
advised.
said-
I was never contacted by her or
You
whoever
just said
this
you
person
received a
is.
letter stating that.
No, George, I'm telling you, no.
I'm not going to take up Harry. I'm not going to take up the rest of this committee. I'm going to have this. I'll have this conversation with Tom as soon as I get off this
Absolutely,
meeting.
George. I'm all for that.
And we're going to send a recording to them because that is not what we have been advised at all.
Wow, and George, and this is what I'm saying. So now, if anybody's listening to this, you are understanding some people's frustrations.
Mr.
Ivan,
Boris, we get the
I think-
frustration, but
I
you
think
can't
you-
put that
you're
on.
better off discussing this in private with
Yes.
George or Ursula
Absolutely,
or
Mr.
Tom.
Singh, and
Kenyon.
I apologize, Mr. Singh.
Mr. Boris, this
No,
happens.
but I think that this is actually important because this is the stuff that we've been dancing around for the last several months. This meeting, according to the agenda, was just an introduction and to sort of lay the ground rules. But it seems like the people who have these issues don't even understand what the process is. And I think Harry spoke to some of that earlier when he said we're going to talk about how to make the process easy for anybody to bring a complaint to the community board. The issue that Ivan is raising, again, we've been I don't even know what the right word is, but we're not allowed to discuss it. So, and
Understand that, and
Mr.
Mr. Singh was completely transparent and understanding. And now, when I hear other people addressing the fact that this is not the time, and we need to get past it, it's like, how does somebody get past it when you don't have any answers?
No.
And that's all I'm expressing. That's it. I'm not trying to drag this out.
That's a different discussion. Those are legitimate issues raised, and we have had them as a board for a very long time about the process of who sits on what committee. Right now, we just got appointed 8 new board members, and they all want to be on different committees. That is, I guess, a prerogative that we give to our chairman. That's always been the case. So you're right to raise issues, but everybody else can also raise issues. What we're saying and what Harry has said here is that we're going to make a recommendation on a code of conduct. That's all. That is the only thing that we're talking about right now, yet other things have come up. So all those things are fair game. We can have those conversations in the bylaws committee. That's all.
And, I have to say, I need to protect myself. I need to protect Beatrice. I need to protect Carl Lanzano from hearing things that we shouldn't be hearing if there's going to be a complaint coming to us. So now that we've exhausted our agenda, is there a motion to close the meeting?
I just need to make one final point, Harry. And that
who's
is,
that? Okay.
This is Ted James.
So long as the point wasn't made earlier, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's whenever a committee chairperson writes to the chairman and basically gives him or tells him that something needs to be on the agenda, it's the chairman's obligation to put that on the agenda. He doesn't have a choice as to whether or not he can do it. It's coming from a committee, and it's the chairman's obligation to make sure it gets on the agenda. So for those who think that Dr. Burke will not want to put something on the agenda, he doesn't really have that choice. He has to put it.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Is there a motion to close the meeting?
I'll make the motion. Carl Lanzano.
Any second?
I second that.
Excuse me. I'm sorry I came to the meeting late. I couldn't get in because of the WebEx. I needed my daughter to get in or something. But from what I heard, the objection seemed to be that we weren't addressing something which we're not supposed to talk about. But to me, that's why Dr. Burke went out of his way to form the committee, so it could be addressed. Now, if it's not in our hands, that is something else. But we're working to get resolved what it was at issue. That's all I'm saying. If you don't like the makeup of the committee, that could be resolved too. But that's a different issue. That's all I'd say.
Thanks, Carl. Now I'm a little confused as to where we are with that motion and the seconding of that motion. Is the meeting closed?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. We appreciate it.
Good night, everyone, and I have confidence in you.